Indeed, welcome back, and we want to delve into that discussion that I earlier alluded to, and that is antimicrobial resistance. It is not a new term, really, antimicrobial resistance, which just means, resistance of viruses, fungi, and also bacteria to the medicines that are supposed to actually kill them. But we've been looking at it, mainly looking at the human health. But today we want to delve into how antimicrobial resistance is affecting animal health. And joining me in studio right now is Dr. Moses Olum. He's a research scientist at Calro. Thank you so much, Dr. for coming into the studio.
Thank you very much. Feeling welcome.
Yes, so let's talk about antimicrobial resistance in brief. First of all, many people understand antimicrobial resistance from a human point, in the sense of people misusing antibiotics, self-medication, over-the-counter, and all that. What does antimicrobial resistance look like in animals?
So the same thing that happens in people happen in animals. And one thing that it would be important to note is that the same antibiotics and antivirals and everything that are used in humans are the same products that we use in the animals. The difference is that the concentrations that we use in those species are a little bit more, because the animals are much bigger, they weigh much more kilos. So the products that we use for animals are the same products used for people, particularly antibiotics. And because of that, then if we develop antimicrobial resistance in animals, then that can be transferred to people in their food, because at the end of the day, we eat the animals.
Definitely, yes. We depend on animals for our food. So in humans, we look at it as the misuse of antibiotics. When you get a small cough, a small sore throat, you go into the chemist and decide to self-medicate. But in animals, how does that look like? Is it that they are overused, or how are they supposed to be used in animals, and how are they being misused?
So the only disadvantage we have in the animal health space is that we realize that people look at the animals and the people who provide animal health services as not very available. So if you do not have professionals who are available to treat your animal, then you resort to, again, self-treatment in the animals. So whenever your animals become sick out of any disease, you probably don't get the proper diagnosis and go ahead to treat. And as that happens, so most people realize that when the animals get better, chicken, you give them medicine for 2 days, they get better, you stop the treatment, you have exposed bacteria in them to this antibiotic, and therefore they end up being resistant at the end of the day. So when you expose animals to less of these antibiotics, then there is a very high chance of developing resistance. At the same time, you find that there is misuse of these products. So we are supposed to work in hygienic environments so that our animals are able to be free of disease. But most farmers operate in not very hygienic environments. Therefore, the animals end up being sick often. And when they get sick, the cover is antibiotics. So we are using antibiotics to cover for unhygienic standards. And when this happens, therefore, you realize that the animals will be coming to your plate before they are withdrawn. There is something we call a withdrawal period. After your dairy cow gets treatment, you need to not give the milk to people to consume for a period of time, depending on the drug that has been used. This applies to poultry and chicken for meat. This applies to beef for meat. So this period is most of the time not observed. And then you end up giving people with traces of antibiotics, of the food with traces of antibiotics. When this happens, therefore, people will end up being also exposed to these antibiotics. And now people are getting exposed to antibiotics from their food in very low quantities. And this leads to resistance development.
Okay. So you've mentioned unhygienic conditions, and that is why probably the animals are falling sick, and that is why the farmers are also now trying to, treat them themselves, because probably they think like the veterinary officers are not available to help them out. And so my question is, how does this now relate to human health? Because right now there is this term that we are, that has been coined, if I may put it, One Health, where animal health is definitely directly to human health. It's very direct to human health. So how does that affect human health? And probably as you answer that question, maybe we'll also be very interested to know which particular animals are you seeing in your research as the ones that, can I say, the farmers that are abusing these antibiotics?
So there is a very clear linkage, although it's very complex, between animals and people, because when you slaughter a chicken to eat, that is now your food. And if you treated that chicken just a few days ago, you're getting exposed to the drugs that you used in that chicken. If you are going to again slaughter that chicken and not do it in hygienic standards, then you're going to be exposed to bacteria that is within the gut, the intestines of this chicken, and that becomes the what will make your food not unsafe. So in that space, we talk about food safety. So there are two ways of interacting with antibiotics or drugs in the food. In that you have treated an animal, you have not given them time for this antibiotic or this drug to clear out of the body, so you get exposed to that antibiotic. And now when you're getting exposed, you're not getting exposed at the right doses. So you are okay, but being exposed to drugs. Secondly, if your animals have gone to the end of that trail of developing the antibiotic resistant bacteria, then they will be able to transmit that bacteria to you, especially again if you're operating within unhygienic standards. So this is how One Health comes about, because the bacteria that are in the animals are able to infect people and cause diseases, something like Campylobacter, E. coli, among others. They are able to infect people and actually cause diseases in them. So whenever this happens, then human beings are exposed to this. So this is coming about because of misuse, actually, of drugs in animal production. And as I said, it's a cover for poor hygiene, among other things. People know that you need to vaccinate your chicken, you need to vaccinate your cow, but they don't do that, waiting for them to get ill and treat them. So we realize that the most antibiotic or drug use is happening in dairy production systems, where we have animals that produce milk. They are treated for infections like mastitis, which is infection that affects the udder and affects the milk production. And we find huge antibiotic consumption in chicken as well. So the chicken that we are eating that is produced in a short period of time, because again of research, and you're able to get broilers in about 4 weeks out to ready for consumption, people tend to cover everything with drugs. So when that happens, you either get exposed to the drugs that were used, or you get exposed to bacteria that have developed resistance to antibiotics.
So then how can we take care, can I say, of ourselves, in the sense that, is there a way that somebody can identify if maybe an animal or whatever product they want to consume, it has not been properly handled? I'm not so sure if that is possible. If you look at the chicken, is there a way that you can identify? And what then should we do? Apart from, you'll tell us what the farmers need to do, but as the consumer, what am I supposed to do when I buy that chicken? The broiler that you say takes a very short time, unlike the kienyeji ones. What am I supposed to do when I'm handling such kind of products?
So the worst bit of this is that you are not able to see these antibiotics, and if we leave alone the drugs, we're also having pesticides that are also in the environment, and these animals get exposed to. So you cannot be able to see, so you'll go ahead and consume the animal. The only point, which is very rare, and the government has put in place measures to cap that, is that when you find animals like cattle injected with antibiotics, you can find this within the muscle. And when they go through what we call meat inspection at the slaughterhouses, these are able to be picked and removed from the food chain. But otherwise, if the drug is given orally by mouth, or if the injection site has healed, then you are not able to pick this even during meat inspection. And therefore, you are able to not able to do anything about it. But then, as the consumers, what needs to happen is to create awareness among consumers. And the consumers should be able able to demand for more safer food. How can you demand for more safer food? By going for milk that has been produced or that has gone through the normal processing channel, unlike milk that is being sold in informal setups. Because when milk that has gone through processing, when they are being received probably at the cooperatives, then they go through testing to look at these antimicrobials. But with awareness, you're then able to understand much more of this.
So just briefly before we close, what should then the farmers do? And probably I could even say there's a failure somewhere. I don't know whether to say it's with the veterinarians or why is it that farmers are allowed to use this medication without any form of regulation? But even as you talk about that, what should the farmers do?
There is a weak link, I would say, because these antibiotics are sold by professionals and they are accessible to the farmers. So that is where the weak link comes in terms of regulation from government and also professionals just making sure that they don't release this prescription medication to farmers. But at the same time, our farmers are on a cost-cutting mission. They want to produce as much as possible and make as much profit at the detriment of the health of the people. So they will go for the medication, for self-medication, because they are cost-cutting on the veterinary service. When they do that, then they will make the profits, yes, but then at huge cost.
Exactly.
At a huge cost.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moses Olum. So we're talking to Dr. Moses Olum. He is a researcher, at Kenya Agriculture Livestock Institute, that is KALRO. Thank you so much for coming to the studio and just talking to us about antimicrobial resistance in animals. This is a very, very important topic, I must say, because it is not just animal health, but also human health being put, at risk.